I literally just returned from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland with a full report and a great guest on a topic of immigration. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
The interview this week is so fitting because the themes of what happened at the Republican National Convention were, of course, about immigration. We have a great conversation about this week about that with Priscilla Ornelas, a very close friend of mine. But first, we start everything off with what we call the sweep. I just returned from Cleveland, Ohio, where the Republican National Convention was held last week. The speeches all week long from one extreme to the other, starting with Melania Trump's speech and all the controversy that followed that one. But I thought some of the most significant moments of the week happened not necessarily in this order, but I thought Rudy Giuliani did an amazing job of getting that crowd on their feet when he recognized law enforcement in Cleveland and the federal agencies protecting everyone. By the way, what an amazing job the Cleveland Police Department, also 25 or 30 agencies from across the country. I saw people there from Indiana and as far away as Hawaii helping with protection of the event. They did a fantastic job of keeping us safe on the inside, but it didn't feel like a lockdown. It really was comfortable. Once you were inside the perimeter, they were great to talk to. And for the Republican delegation that was there, I asked some of the police officers how they were received. One of the Cleveland police officers said to me, "I've never been hugged and kissed so much in my entire life." So to the Republican delegation, congratulations to reaching out for law enforcement. And thank you to all the law enforcement for keeping us safe while we were there. And Rudy Giuliani highlighted that while he was there. Chris Christie did an amazing job of laying out a case as a prosecutor against Hillary Clinton. But his most significant moment was the last 2 minutes of his speech where he looked into the camera and said, "I want to talk to the rest of America," and did a phenomenal job. But I want you to see one piece of a speech. Ted Cruz had the crowd on their feet for his entire speech until this happened.
If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
There you have it. No endorsement. He told them ahead of time. Both the party and the people in Trump's camp read the speech. He said he wouldn't endorse. What he did say was vote your conscience. They loved him until he didn't endorse, and then they booed him resoundingly. It was a really significant week. And then when Donald Trump took the stage, he spoke for 76 minutes, the longest acceptance speech in 40 years. And he had a lot to talk about. He laid out his platform, his 100-day plan. It was largely received very well. I think they left there the way they needed to, unified and ready to go after the Clinton campaign. Now, Hillary Clinton starts in Philadelphia on Monday with the Democratic National Convention, and she named Tim Kaine, former governor, as her running mate. So we'll see what the Clinton-Kaine ticket can get done and how this is going to play out between now and November. Stay tuned, because in a moment, my friend Priscilla Ornelas, who works for Mix 96.9 in their morning show, an immigrant to this country, her family is, she was born in America. A different face on immigration, something you need to see. That's up next. Then we'll have Broomhead's Best and hashtag this. Don't go away. Immigration is a hot button topic, and we always talk in black and white abstract. One of the nice things about working at the radio company I do is there's 8 radio stations. Our sister station is Mix 96.9. In the morning is the Matthew Blade Show, and Priscilla Ornelas is the co-host. It should be Matt and Priscilla.
Yeah, one day we'll get there. We'll get there, but we're on our verge.
We were talking at work, and I heard your story of being an immigrant.
Yes.
And it is such a compelling, heartfelt story, the sacrifices your mother made.
Yeah.
Share a little bit of that with me. I just want to put a face on this issue, and you do such a good job of it.
Thank you. Well, my mother is actually an immigrant, so I'm a first-generation American, and my oldest brother was born in Mexico as well. So I know a lot of people are, and I was born here in the United States, actually, in Arizona, and a lot of people are wondering, like, how are you born in Arizona if, you know, your family was born in Mexico? Well, my mother actually went about the process and applied for her citizenship and immigration along with my older brother. And during that process, she moved to Arizona while she was pregnant with me. She had me here in the States after I was registered with the hospital, applied for Social Security, all of that, that's when immigration contacted her and said, whoa, 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 why are you in Arizona? You're still in the middle of your immigration. And she really didn't have any idea because, you know, she wasn't familiar with the process. So she got nervous and headed back to Mexico with me, even though I was a U.S. citizen. So we ended up, I ended up starting my life in Mexico after I was born here in the States.
But it was pretty dire circumstances that brought you ultimately to the U.S.
Yeah, when we headed back to Mexico, the only housing we had was my grandmother's old home, and it was basically a little, I mean, it was built out of cinder blocks. There was no air conditioning, no heater, there was no running water. All of our water was collected in bins and barrels. My oldest brother actually had to walk down the mountain to go get water and then walk back up and have it there for us. And we ended up getting really ill because of, you know, the lack of running water. I ended up contracting a parasite. I was in the hospital. I was unconscious for 3 days, and they were having issues, you know, bring me back to consciousness. My brother was dealing with fevers and ended up with epilepsy as an adult. It was just a lot of medical concerns and issues that my mother had enough. She's like, there's no opportunity here for my kids to have a great life, and I don't want them to grow up like I did, because she had not the greatest life at all. She had she was dealt a terrible hand with abuse, you know, not the greatest family, poverty-stricken, that kind of thing.
So now, to see you here, what does your mother think? Because the sacrifice of bringing 2 small children across the border. Now, she was allowed to be here. She was legal.
Yes.
You were legal.
My
your brother wasn't yet.
wasn't. So then my mother made the decision, once I got ill, she made the decision to bring us to Arizona, even though my brother wasn't legal. So I know it was a tough decision for her to make, and she came here, she worked her butt off, she worked legally, she got a job, but for about 4 years my brother was here illegally because his immigration was staggered to my mother's and they weren't being processed the same way. So it was really tough for my mom because while she was making the best decision for her kids, she knew that it was a decision that was obviously something that was illegal.
But your brother's status is eventually...
Yes, so he was only here illegally for about 4 years, and then his immigration followed through, and now he's a U.S. citizen, and you know, as an adult, he ended up getting his citizenship. And so both of and then my mom did as well. And a funny story, I actually helped my mom become a citizen by helping her study for her test. When I was in 6th grade, we would sit at the kitchen table, and I would read the questions of, you know, U.S. history to her, and she'd read them back to me, and I would help her. Just that's part of my mother's journey that I hold dear to my heart, that she worked so hard to reach that final step of citizenship.
When you see the arguments in Arizona and other places in the country about immigration, how does it make you feel? You've done this, you've lived it. How does it make you feel, the fight in general?
You know, it hurts my heart because I know there is a problem with immigration here, and the people that do arrive here illegally, it's not always economical gain. A lot of people come here because of dire situations like health and poverty, or to escape you know, an abusive man or a husband. And that's why they make that ultimate sacrifice to leave everything they've ever known and bring their kids here, even if it's the potential of having it done illegally.
So when you look at your mom now, or when your mom looks at you, more importantly, here you are in a great career. I mean, you do a fantastic job on the radio. It's a very popular show, and you are really the all-American girl. When your mother looks at the life you have now, do you think she ever imagined it would be what it is?
I don't know that she did. I think that her main goal at the time was just to get my brother and I out of that situation, and she'd hoped for opportunity for us and for us to take advantage of that. Her stance was like, hey, I'm bringing you to a better country, what are you gonna do with it? Once we became adults. And my brother and I never ever took that for granted. We knew the life we could have had in Mexico and the life our mother gave us here in America. And we even had talks about this at dinner tables, and we're like, we have to make our mom proud. Like, we have to do something with our lives that my mom can look back at when she's old and about to pass and say, I'm glad I did this for my children.
So now you have 2 children.
I do. I have 2 beautiful little girls. They're 11 and 9 months old. And I think that's for me personally, I think that's where the reward comes into play, to see the life that I give my 2 daughters, and then the relationship my mom has with my 2 girls is irreplaceable. Like, she loves them, and I think any grandparent does, loves them more than she loves me. And
that's the truth.
as a grandparent,
you
love your grandkids, and to see that so special. And I think like my girls would not have been able to have that relationship with her in a different country if I wouldn't have come here and lived the life I did.
So how much of this do you want to pass along to your girls to know how much they should appreciate America because of what it could have been?
I want to pass everything to them. I want to expose them to the culture of being Mexican. I want to expose them to the struggle that my mother went through as an immigrant. I want to expose them to the benefits they have of being U.S. citizens. I hope that my mother's journey and sacrifice made my journey easier, and I'm hoping that my journey is going to make my girls' journey easier. And just
every parent's dream.
Yeah, it's just my goal in life as a parent is just to make my kids' life a little bit easier than mine was. And that, I think that's what my mom had in mind for me and my brother. And I just want my girls to really understand where they came from and where they are now.
In a moment, I want to go a little deeper into some of the political issues, but also some more of your story.
Okay.
Priscilla's story is something else, to hear the journey that her mother made and the decisions she made and how much of an advantage she's taken of it. In a few moments, some questions about the fight on illegal immigration, some of the bad connotations that come with being an immigrant, and how you balance culture with Americanism. We'll do that here in just a moment. We'll be back. We're back talking immigration with Priscilla Ornelas, who is with Mix 96.9, and you really are the American girl. I said that in the first segment, but I've worked with you for so long and had no idea what your story was, and the more we started talking, the more I wanted you to help me tell it. Because on my show, it's such a battle, and there is a balance between, and I believe we need to have border security. We need to be better secured. But I also know that we're a nation of immigrants.
Yes.
And that's what makes us a special place, when families like yours see America as their hope for a future. And to hear a story like yours is so compelling, because you've taken full advantage of this in being the all-American girl and working hard and being successful. When you see this fight between both sides, do you ever pick a side, or do you just want to tell both sides to shut up?
I don't know if I pick a side. I understand both sides. I can see that obviously we need a fix for the immigration, and I can also understand why people make the decision to come here illegally. Like I said, I don't always think it's economical gain, and I think that's the main focus that people that are trying to fight immigration think. It's like, well, they're just coming here to steal our jobs and take our money and freeload, and I don't think that's always the case, but at the same time, I think that things should have a procedure.
And your mother never took public assistance, did she?
No, she was actually in fear of taking public assistance because my brother was here illegally, so she worked hard, she paid taxes, she was a housekeeper at a hotel. All she could afford was a studio apartment for me and my brother and her, and the 3 of us lived on a pull-out couch for about 4 years. So my mom struggled, but she did it in a way where she felt that would be the most right way for her situation. So
when you talk about culture, it's fascinating. I grew up with a lot of people. My best friends were from Mexico growing up in Florida, and I had friends from Cuba, and they would speak Spanish in the house. So the part of the culture, it was Cuban food, and it was a lot of fun. It was always a great family atmosphere where they brought their culture with them. But they were fiercely American, and outside of the house they spoke English. How do you balance maintaining the culture, teaching your daughter the culture that you grew up with, and yet the Americanism, and for her and both of your children to be proud of being American?
Well, growing up, my mom made it a point to make sure that we did speak English, because she didn't want us to struggle with the language barrier that she struggled with. You know, she's been here, oh my goodness, she's been here 27 years, and she still has an accent, and she feels like sometimes it is an issue for her, and she didn't want that for us. So she taught us Spanish growing up, But she wanted to make sure that English was a priority. And, you know, being in America, obviously I want my girls to know how to speak English, and that's their primary language. But I think it's important for them to understand that we are a country of immigrants, and Spanish, especially here in Arizona, is a huge thing, and I want them to have that influence. So I try to teach them as much as I can. I can't sit here and say that I taught them the way my mom taught me, but they definitely understand, and they can get through a conversation.
So how is your perspective different now that you are a mother? Because now you are a mother with 2 children. Mm-hmm. Look back on your mother with 2 children and that decision she made. How is your perspective different now?
I will say this, before I had daughters, before I had kids, and I knew my mother made it here, she came here legally, I always thought, why would anybody not come here legally? Like, why is that a thing? Just my mom did it, why can't everybody else do it? And then growing up, you know, I learned more about our story as a family and understood that my brother had his issues and his immigration was staggered to hers. And now that I have 2 daughters, I would have made the same decision in a heartbeat. My kids come before anything in this planet. And I know that, I think a lot of parents can agree with that. And I know that there's a whole political side to it, but at the end of the day, my girls come first, and my decision would have been the same as my mom's if it would have taken them out of that type of life.
Have you faced any of the backlash? Maybe not just for telling the story, but because you're from Mexico, have you faced some of the backlash from people about the, you know, parents come to steal jobs, or your brother came here illegally, so you should have stayed? Have you faced that backlash at all?
No, I mean, I've gotten people that have disagreed and not understood, but I think I approach it in a way that I'm pretty compassionate all the way around, and I want people to have that same perspective instead of just being right. I am very open to seeing other views, so I don't go at it like, no, this is right, and this is what needs to happen. So I've received some controversy, but not in the amount where it's really affected my everyday life. So I've been lucky, because I know not a lot of people have that.
Well, it becomes such a fierce battle, and I am a very big border security advocate, but for different reasons. And one of the things that I don't think many people know is that when people come across the border illegally, when they hire a coyote to bring them across the border, every woman on the journey expects to be raped on the journey. It doesn't happen to every woman, but they take precautions because they expect it to happen. That, for me, more than anything else, is just enough to say, by allowing the system to maintain the way it is, we are a part of condoning that kind of behavior. It's a horrible situation.
And that's why there definitely has to be a solution. And I don't know if it's lowering the cost of becoming an immigrant of the United States, or offering some incentive to do it legally, like language help or job help, or some type of incentive. Like, hey, if you do it legally, we'll give you these services. But I do believe there has to be something done other than just securing the border a little bit better. There has to be something else done.
What do you want your children to know about your mother?
I want them to know that she sacrificed a lot. She's very selfless. The day that she came to America, she gave up her life. She gave up her future to give my brother and I a better future, which essentially gave my 2 girls a better future, and to really appreciate her. And that's why I've always encouraged my mother and I, you know, she's grown up very strong. So she's a woman of few words, and we've never seen eye to eye, or we have, but it just, you know, there are times when you don't see eye to eye with your parents. But even when I don't see eye to eye with my mom, I've always maintained that my girls have to have a relationship with her, because they have to. My mother has to have that encouragement that she made that sacrifice for the right reasons, and seeing them with my girls and seeing my mom with my girls, it's just, that's all the reward I need for the sacrifices she made as well.
The issue's not going away.
No.
And you and I will be talking about this for years to come, but your willingness to tell the story and to be compassionate, because it would be so easy for you to being attached to the issue, to take it personally and react when people act. So I appreciate the way you've handled the story, and it is really, to me, it's the biggest compliment to see you be the all-American girl. So tune in to 96.9 in the morning, even though you should be listening to me. I want you to tune in, Matthew and Priscilla, on 96.9 in the morning, because it's a great show, and you're just a terrific person. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be back. time for my favorite part of the show. We call it Broomhead's Best. At every national convention, there is a work project that's done in the host city. This year it didn't happen, so Arizona picked up the slack. Robert Graham is the head of the Arizona Republican Party, with over 100 delegates at the Cleveland Food Bank packing boxes for needy families. You did us proud in Arizona. What a great job you've done. You're this week's Broomhead's Best. Now it's time for something we call #this. Melania Trump, she rickrolled us in her speech. Watch this.
He will never, ever give up. And most importantly, he will never, ever let you down.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
We'll be back to close out the show here in just a moment.
Never gonna say goodbye.
When all is said and done, I had a great time witnessing history again as a presidential candidate was nominated. Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. This week, Hillary Clinton will be the Democrat nominee. Love him or hate him, it's history being made, and that's really what it was all about for us this week. I had a great time. Next week's show, can't wait to get here. Have a great week. God bless.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.